welcome, one and all. It is a week 8 slash bye week edition of Jagging It Up, the Jaguars podcast, where two Jaguar fans sit around and just talk about what our team could do better. I am Josh Slater, and always I am joined by my good friend Charles Griggs. Charles, how you doing?
What up, what up, what up? How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. If you ignore what the Jags are doing on the football field, it's great. They're
Yeah, I'll say it was a less than stellar Jaguars Monday, but we shall persevere.
we shall persevere. I will say, we haven't done this in a couple weeks because I was on vacation for a week during the Monday
Yes, you
night
were.
game. Uh, and then I came back, had to go to work for a week, and then immediately it was my girlfriend's birthday, so we went out of town once again for that. So I was spared. I was occupied doing girlfriend birthday activities and completely missed the game. I checked the score, and when I looked down and saw it was 21-0 in before halftime, I was like, don't need to check this anymore.
Hey,
So
man. Well, at least your weekend was, at least it was filled with all sunshine and smiles and not incessant cursing at the TV screen. So I'll take that for you. How about that?
yeah, I appreciate that. But we're gonna break it all down. And it's the bye week, so let's press the right button and let's do a bye week breakdown. I don't have the right AI whatever to record an audio file for that, but I got the graphic nonetheless. So as always, I'm gonna let you go ahead and go first. Take it away, kind sir. What do you have?
All righty, sir. So, first things first, the thing that we all see, penalties are killing us. And as far as I'm concerned, penalties come down to coaching. And when I say coaching, I don't just mean the head coach. It's everybody in between, man. It's the line coaches, it's the wide receiver coaches. Heck, it's the strengthening, conditioning coaches. It could be even a masseuse. I mean, it's it's a thing where if you know the playbook, if you know your plays, you know, most of these penalties are, stupid things like, procedure calls. We don't see as much PIs, but we get some PI sprinkled in there. But most of them are procedure calls, offsides. We did see a couple of even a couple, time clock stuff. That's as far as I'm concerned, that's unacceptable, man. That's you're on an NFL team. You should know how many times Trevor has to say hike before you hike the ball. If it's a 2 count, it's a 3 count. We should know that. Heck, I know it, and I'm not even on the team. I'm watching on TV. So that's
Yeah,
a thing too. So
just to add to the whole cadence thing, he tells you in the huddle before you
exactly,
break the huddle. So yeah,
exactly. What are we
yeah,
doing? What are we doing? If he's playing, you go into the huddle and you're playing Game Boy. So, we got to get over that. That's just a bad look on the coaching staff. It's a bad look on Liam Cohen. It's a bad look, all around. So we hate to see that. So the drops, we see the drops, as far as, we saw on episode 1 of this stream, as far as I'm concerned, man, if you're an NFL wide receiver, if your hand touches anywhere on your body, that's a catchable ball. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. I don't, we see a couple times we've seen some business decision catches, man. You know, you got to catch the ball. It may be a hospital pass. However, you got to catch the ball. Be a man about it. You're gonna get your couple $1 million payout if you never play in the league again. But like, do it for the team. It's all about, we all making sacrifices. I make a sacrifice every month when I gotta pay my light bill. Let's make these sacrifices, y'all. Let's do it. You know. So, but moving on from that, Travis Hunter, we're not using him enough. I will say it. I know it's the hot button issue all around the, everywhere is the hot take, it's the big hot take. But I think the real hot take, kind of underneath that is, you know, Trevor just doesn't see him. I don't know what it is that they're doing after practice or before practice or even during practice. But whatever these guys like, their synergy is not there. It's not there. It hasn't been there since game two. I mean, every time Trevor has the ball thrown to him, it's either over, underneath, sideways, upside down. It's nowhere near him. It's a bad connection between the two of them. There was a play where Trevor obviously threw the ball too early, and Travis was expecting the ball a little bit later, so we can because we know Trevor likes to do a little razzle dazzle after he likes to catch the ball in stride. So communication, man. I don't know what these guys are doing. They need to go to, get some ice cream together after practice or something. But it's got to be there. It's got to be there. And what that does is equate into they're not using them enough. So that's where I feel on that.
Yeah, I know. Like on our last show, I talked about route trees and whether or not we're all looking at the route trees. And so some of
Right.
that can also be, like he's calling a seven, and the definition of seven is slightly different. I will say this from watching the highlights, and I noticed it a couple weeks ago as well. When Trevor gets frustrated, that ball is coming out of that gun like he fired it out of that ball is coming out of his hand as if he fired it out of a gun. Like all he's doing is hard pressing the X button to that receiver.
Right.
He just wants to bullet it to everybody. What do you think that has? How does that play into some of the drops and some of the misuse of Hunter?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's a connection thing. Even more so than the communication, it's a connection thing. So, you know, Travis Hunter is not only, not only did he just get there, he just met the guy. And not only that, but he's learning two different playbooks. He's got to learn both sides of the ball, and he's higher. I believe he's the CB number two on defense, and he's WR number three on offense. So, he's learning this stuff, and the he's mostly playing in the slot on offense. And in the slot, those are some wild routes, man, that you have to kind of pick up on. And he's still learning this stuff. And not only that, but you have to deal with the intricacies of working with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's played all of his life, who's has his stuff, boiled down to a T. And even when he's angry or nervous or sad or whatever, we all saw him, swipe off, Liam Cohn in the game a couple games ago. That's him. That's what he does. That just translates into those guys not connecting, man. You hate to see it because they're two very talented guys, especially out of Travis. I believe that Travis Hunter is the most talented guy on the field right now, and it's not being taken advantage of because the connection's just not there.
So let me ask you another question when we're like on this subject again. Hunter came from Colorado, where he had the same QB for I think all 4 years of college, even in Jackson
Yeah.
State.
So yeah, even at Jackson State, he had the same QB.
And so at that point, and they played high school together, and they played Pee Wee together. Like Dion has been this guy's coach since he could put on pads. When you have that type of chemistry, the only thing I can think of that equates to it in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelsey, where they're on the
Yeah.
same wavelength because they've sat in film study for literally hours upon hours, thousands of hours together.
Right. Right.
What does it take to get even the beginning of building that road down the line? In your opinion,
Right. So
for
I mean, like I said, it's that connection needs to be there, man. Those guys need to, when practice is over, it's bigger. It's more than just running routes after practice, man. These guys gotta, hold up somewhere and just do it. That's what the greats do. I mean, there's a really good video of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, just doing their pregame, just in the week, just going over tape after tape after tape, just going over the tape and going down, who does what, who can catch what, who can line up against who, who's going to do what, that level of connection is just not evident between those two. If Travis Hunter is going to be the guy, you know, they got to start treating him like the guy, and right now that's not happening. I mean, he's got the big contract, I see him in commercials everywhere, but right now, he's not being the guy. I would like to see him more of being more of the guy. The other, the rest of the wide receiver core has made it very clear that they don't want to be the guy either. And if that's the case, then there's nothing more. There's nothing better than to have the number one pick, our number one pick, be the guy. We traded up to get him. Let's put him to work. I mean, let's get that connection going. If Leon Kong needs to, call up both of them and lock them in a room together, all three of them, and play chess. Just not even talk football. Just play checkers all day or Monopoly or something. There needs to be some type of connection. I need to see connection, man. These guys need to be talking on the sideline, after their inevitable 3-and-out, we see none of that. We see none of that. And, it's really sad to see, man, because it could be the makings of something great, but I'd love to see more of it.
Yeah, I've got some Hunter stuff too. When I start talking through my points, but let's kind of just keep the ball rolling here for a
Yeah.
second.
So last two, and I'm gonna kind of jet through them just because I really want to see your points. I kind of haven't seen them yet, but I really want to see them. So after this London game, the dreaded London game, now we're talking about it. So I will say that yes, we did get our butts handed to us. Yes, Trevor Lawrence, this was, in a string of bad performances, this is one of the worst. Yes, everybody decided just to not show up. Yes, we played without Devin Lloyd. However, that's kind of par for the course for the London games. Historically, we've done really bad in London games. So, this isn't something I'm necessarily worried about. I mean, we've got the very beginning, we got the beginning of the first 5 games to kind of go by. You know, there's a lot of football. My dad does, he has a saying, there's a lot of football left to be played. So, we're at the middle of the season right now, and these guys are, we've made some big trades. There were holes in London that, that weren't, that didn't get filled necessarily. We went into this game without, we traded away Tyson Campbell. We got a whole new cornerback, so we're still getting used to stuff. And, we went into London with that. And, couple the fact that, there's even the intangible stuff. LA got there, 2 days before the game started. Jacksonville spent the entire week in London. So, who knows how that could have affected both teams. That could have affected LA for the better. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff at play, but historically, we've always done really bad in London. So you can kind of tell from the lack of Jaguars jerseys out there at our home field. So it's not time to panic. I'll say that. It's not time to panic. Maybe after week 10, we got a bye week coming up. Everybody's going to be rested. We should have Devin Lloyd back. We'll see how that goes. And my final point, what happened to the O-line? I mean, the last 3 games were, you know, Trevor Lawrence was sacked 5 times, 6 times. Well, for the first 5 weeks, Trevor Lawrence was sacked 6 times, and the next 2 games after that, he was sacked 7 times each. So, the guys, I don't know what's going on with the guys. I mean, Anton Harrison went out with an injury, and after that, they kind of just fell off. I mean, they've evolved into Swiss cheese. So that's another thing that I would like to see addressed. And I don't want to say, "Hey, coaches, what are you doing?" But what's going on here? I mean, that's a marked difference. It's something like that shows me that something has fundamentally changed. So, what's going on here?
Yeah, I agree, and we when we have had success in London, like we've been there a lot of times, so not under this front office of this regime, but with Shad. So like the whole, do you get there 2 days early? Do you get there a week early? Do you, and
Right.
honestly, it it one system doesn't seem to always pan out because there's also been stories about, yeah, we got there a week early, but Friday night the entire secondary went out to dinner and walked out without paying their tab, and like there's
Right.
we create our own distractions sometimes. So
Right.
I
Right.
understand you there. I actually want to comment on some of the comments on the video. Lewis C904. We have zero pass rush, and he states that we are last in sacks, last in the league in sacks, which I believe. I haven't looked at the stat, but yeah, as much as Devin Lloyd, Josh Hayden Allen, and Trayvon Walker are all having good statistic seasons, we're not seeing a lot of those turn into sacks. And our run game is dead, and that's you can
Right.
we didn't create graphics for these stats, but like, yeah, absolutely. I think we've had ETN's had 50 to 60 the last two games, and
Yeah. Right.
those great rookies from preseason to weeks 1, 2, and 3 have just evaporated. So
Right. I think, me personally, I think as far as the O line is concerned and the running, I believe that a lot of the attention has been shifted from run blocking to pass protection. And you can kind of see that in the first 5 games. And I won't say the first five, I will say the first four. Not even the first four. I would say the first three. So you kind of see how like the scheme has fundamentally changed. Jags have, through all of our coaches, the Jags have been historically, trying a team of trying to establish a run game. And the first thing that happened when Liam Cohen came in was they were trying to establish the pass game, and you could see that right out of the gate. And what that did was in those first couple games, that opened the floodgates for ETN to kind of do what he needed to do. But now that these are NFL coaches, I mean that only lasts
2 weeks,
so
3
long.
weeks.
Yeah, right. That only lasts so long. I said it in the first, in the first episode. These guys will out you fast. You've got to evolve. I mean, it was cool when it was happening, but now we've got to evolve. And it's up to coach. It's up to my coach to kind of evolve with that and call upon his guys to kind of come up with a solution for that. We shouldn't, historically we've done it bad in London. However, it was game 7. We should have already been in the middle of evolving our play style, our play calling. It's not a big change, but it's just enough for them not to score 35 points on us.
Yeah.
That's the defense is, they got their number. They got their number, you
And
know.
especially when you hear the GM talking, like he's talking about constantly evolving. And again, that's why we sent Tyson Campbell to Cleveland and got their
Right.
in exchange for their cornerback. Um, I had something, I just forgot it.
So
uh,
while you're thinking about that, I will also say, you know, they are. I can see that they're gearing up to make a big acquisition in free agency. We that Tyson Campbell offload was a part of that. Something's going to happen right up at the deadline of free agency. I think they're talking to whoever it is right now, trying to see what the deal is and trying to make out, trying to make some room in the cap. See how much room in the cap we got right now. However, what holes they're going to fill really depends on. I think that they probably just blew up their whole plan after this London game because that just showed, all the holes that we have. It's, guys not being there. Everybody's phoning home, man. So we'll see. We'll see, because the trade deadline's coming up, and if
It
they're
is.
not, if the Jags aren't, in everybody's headlines during the during the whole trade deadline deal, then I really don't know what the heck is going on, because something's got to change. Something's got to
Yeah.
happen. Something's got to
I mean,
happen. I won't
I'm
say change, but happen.
Yeah, I will say this. We have had offensive linemen go down on injury. We've tried to replace them with either guys that weren't active on rosters, or probably somebody, like we've brought other people in, but it's not that same chemistry that we had. But to your point, let me do one quick point, and then I'll thoroughly agree with you. Our schedule does get easier, and again, if you got to listen to Coach Cohen's Monday press conference, he the Niners, the Chiefs, Seahawks, and Rams all had winning records, and are most likely all going to the playoffs. They're all
Right,
NFC teams, which means we don't have to see them in the playoffs, which is great. But
right,
our schedule from here on out gets easier. We have the
right.
Colts twice, which we're in the same division as them. They're leading the division. If we want to win this division, somehow in some way, we have to go through the Colts to do it. Um, we get them twice. We get Houston another time. They're having not a great season. We get Tennessee twice. They're having a horrible season. Um, Jets, Arizona, Raiders next. None of these guys are having breakout stuff. We do have a couple, like two or three games that, if we want to be good, we're going to have to, like, put our yardstick next to their
Right,
yardstick, and that's the Broncos and a couple of the other guys. So, like, we do have measurables going forward. But as a whole, the second half of the schedule is much easier than the first half.
right,
And, as well as, I'm going to take you off screen. Sorry, buddy. Um, yeah, splash trade. Like we have 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, we were talking about freeing up cap space that we could pay Devin Lloyd, pay Walker, pay those guys in the off season. But at this point, let's start looking around for a true and absolute wide receiver one in free agent. I did, a little bit of research on this. Not that he hasn't said anything, his agent hasn't said anything, but Jalen Waddle's name comes up a lot as a wide receiver that could get moved per the trade deadline. Tyreek Hill, maybe he's not the fastest guy on the field anymore, but he's darn close. He also has some off the field issues, so like that's not he wouldn't be my first guess. But is there a disgruntled wide receiver one that used to play for Tennessee that doesn't get a lot of playtime anymore and has tweeted things? I don't know, man. There's maybe one of those exists. All right. So where are my buttons? Here we go. So with all that being said, I think we have very inventive coaches and a very inventive uh general manager. And you invoked the name of Bill Belichick earlier, and I think what made Belichick great as a head coach is he didn't wait till halftime to make adjustments. He
right,
made
right,
his assistant coaches analyze and break down numbers after two series. Like,
right,
if they went three and out once, what are they doing that we're not? Like, go back
right.
through all of the film study that we did all week long, and find what they're doing now that we weren't expecting them to do, and we're going to make changes now. And I think our front office in a roster portion is doing that now. We're not waiting for trade deadlines. We're not waiting for off season to revamp this roster. We are revamping this roster week in, week out, based upon the outcomes that we're getting and the quantitative data that of our performance that we're seeing on the field. So I think that that's interesting, and I haven't been able to experience that with the Jaguars front office before. Um, my next point
And
was,
absolutely, I mean,
yeah,
I well, if I can speak
yeah,
to that point of the analytics, I mean, we're in modern times, man. Everybody's got tablets on the field. They know what's happening, and it's a point. It's a to me from the outside looking in. It looks like a case of we see it, but we have our plan. You know,
yeah.
so
There's the
we're
ego
long.
of a head coach who's like, oh, we knew this
Absolutely
might have happened, and we planned for it, so we'll institute Plan C. And but I think these guys
right,
are different. That are like, oh, we didn't account for this, and we just got our butts handed
right.
to us. So yeah, like the rest of this week and next week through the bye, like what do they do differently?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen that's different is Trevor needs to get his armband back. You know, we need more options on the field. You know, it's very obvious that and he does call audibles, but I think the options are considerably less than what they were when he had his armband. So you
He
know,
seems to be
I want to see
odd.
that come back.
He seems to be audibling on almost every down,
Oh yeah, it's
which
almost like the
if
old
he,
Peyton Manning play days.
well, it's to the point where either he doesn't trust the original play call,
Right,
or he doesn't know, or he doesn't like know how it's going to set up, so he's audibling to something he's more familiar with in order
right,
to for the because again, we don't do a lot of X's and O's on this program, but there's the pre-snap read, which is what the defense shows you, and then there's, and you can audible for that. You can't
right,
audible for the post-snap read. So he has to then, if it's a pass play, know all 3 to 4 routes,
right.
where everyone's going to be, and then read the zone, read the man, read the safety, and all that stuff. And like he's. Well, let's go and we're talking about this. The last 3 games, his stats have been pretty good. Like he's putting up good amount
Yeah.
of yards. I should have made that column wider so the S's on the same line as yards. But anyways, his touchdowns aren't great. His interceptions have gotten way better. But yeah, he's not. Either he's not doesn't have the ability to read on an NFL level, or he's just not comfortable with the plays that get called in. So I
Right.
don't know which one
And you
that
know,
is, but
I'd like to also state that those, you know, those games he put up that amount of yardage with a less than stellar offensive line.
yeah,
The first 4 games, he was back there making popcorn, trying to figure out who he wanted to
he
throw it
was.
to. But and now he put up those passing yards while seemingly under pressure the entire time. So, kudos to where it belongs. I give him that much. But, those that seeing that graphic, the yardage is cool, but it didn't turn into touchdowns, which is the
No.
biggest thing. That's it, in my vernacular, that's called follow through. There's no follow through at all. So, how do we address that?
So I have an interesting question because, and I haven't run the numbers of this because this is a 10-year out statement I'm about to make. Blake Bortles, sorry, Blaine Gabbert, Blake Bortles, even going back to no, I think David had some pretty good yards. Like as a Jags fan for the last decade, you're used to your quarterback having sub 200 yards a game on average. Now Blake
Right,
had that one really weird year where he broke Mark Brunell's record for yards and touchdowns, and I think he averaged 3
right,
touchdowns a game, like something insane. Um, we're
right,
not we're not used to that. So how much of a um I don't even want to call it a culture thing, but like a historical bearing comes down, and are we grading this guy based upon Jaguar attributes and Jaguar history, or are we grading this guy on an NFL elite level?
I mean, he's a professional quarterback. I mean, I hold him to the highest regard that I would hold any NFL quarterback. I mean, he's got to play to that level. I mean, he's in his mid 20s, but he's not a kid anymore. You know, this isn't pee wee football. You know, this isn't even college. You know, this is the NFL, and he needs to be performing as such. You know, I keep alluding back to the first episode, but there is no such thing as a bad NFL team, and you have to perform up to the level to where you're expected to. You know, you're getting paid all this money. You got to perform, man. You got to perform. You got to perform. Even if, even Blake, you just said it. Even Blake Bortles went out there and burned it up on the field. You
We
gotta
still
put it
lost by
together.
20
You got to
points in each
string
of those
something.
games, but he threw 3 touchdowns.
Right,
So
right, right. He was running for his life in all of those games, but he still put up 17,000 yards in his career. So something's got to happen.
I'm
Something's got to happen. Something's
I
got
want
to
to say
happen.
one last thing for Trevor, and that I still hold that he is still firmly on a hot seat. And our main commenter Lewis C904 once again said, "You can go get a number one wide receiver next year, but the issue is still Trevor and him being mediocre." I did see one thing on Reddit where someone was commenting about Trevor's contract, and he is not a higher paid. He is a higher paid, but if you look at the actual contracts and the way it breaks down, X amount were guaranteed, and it's kind of like a tiered system. He's not technically getting 55 million a year. It's I think a lot of that was either front loaded or back loaded. So
I believe it was front loaded.
we're not taking. So I guess at this point we are still technically paying him as an elite quarterback, even though we know at the end we're not going to. So take that as you mean. I want to
Yeah.
bring up my point about Travis Hunter, which is kind of it doesn't go against what you were saying, but my point is pick one, pick offense or pick defense, and that make that his 80 percentage, and then let him do an occasional other side of the ball. Personally, I would actually rather see him on as a QB on 80-90% of the defensive downs, and then sprinkle him in the slot, 3rd and 10 on a go route or something, whatever he's best at as a wide receiver. Only put him on the field for those, and if that's an option route, if that's go, if that's whatever in a high percentage passing down in an obvious what I hate to say obvious zone coverage because you don't know that till you break the huddle, but still, like put him. I would rather see him as a cornerback because I think when someone does throw his way, he can be more impactful there, and he has to also get
Right.
the rhythm of the game and the wide receivers, um, as opposed to just, hey man, route tree number 7, just you're in the slot on the left, route tree number 7, that's yours, and he's like, all right, cool. But yeah, I think he
Right.
needs to be on. I think they need to pick one and go with that. I'm glad he finally got his touchdown, but I think another stat was Trevor only has 8 passing touchdowns on the year to 7 different receivers. We do not have a wide receiver number one. So just to go back to that point.
We
Um,
don't.
and just my final point. If you watch Cohen post game or watch him on his Monday press conference, which is only about 15-20 minutes normally, he I mean, I'm drinking the Kool Aid that he's making, man. Like I fully buy into what he's doing, and the only reason I have confidence that we're going to win any games for the rest of the season is because this guy's leading the team. There's no one
Yeah.
individual athlete, that makes me think that they can surpass all of the shortcomings. Because again, like he's talking about how the last 4 teams we played are all playoff contenders. Like it gets easier from here. It's he's
Right.
talking about to your point, the penalties. He addressed those, and he puts it all on himself all the time. So yeah, like I have all the confidence in the world because of him.
Yeah.
not because of
So I
actual
mean,
play. So
my, my thing with him, he is a football nerd, and you're starting to see more and more of that. I hate to bring up the guy, as he's currently on the hot seat, Mike McDaniel. Uh, he's the same thing. He brought on a younger guy, but he was a numbers guy. Everybody knows the movie Moneyball. It's a numbers game, and a lot of the younger guys you're gonna start to see it more and more. So these younger guys, they come, they look at the numbers, they move the players around as per usual. We've seen um, positive positive things happen from that. We've seen positive things happen in Miami from that.
we've
Probably
also
not so
seen it
much
all fall
now, but
apart.
right. But I as far as I'm concerned, with Liam Cohn, as far as him keeping the ship right, all he has to do with me is go up to that podium on Monday and just be like, Duval, and I'm set for next week. We good because I'm on the Cohen canoe. Let's do it. He hasn't shown me that he can't pull this team together. We're in the middle of his first season. I believe by what, game 4 of what, man, what's his name?
Doug,
What's his name? Doug and the last guy. Man, what is his name? Both
Doug,
of
Doug,
them.
Doug,
I was
Doug was the last guy. Urban Meyer was the guy before him.
Urban Meyer. Yeah. So by game 4 or 5 for both of them, I was kind of, ready to tune in for the next season. So, we got a lot of time left on this. I am sold on the Coach Corn thing. I know we're gonna get a strong season. I'll be happy. As a true Jags fan, I'll be happy for a 500. I'm happy for
I
500.
I am
So
always happy with 9-8.
yeah, and at this point, the way that the league is going right now, 500 may still get us a wild card berth. So, you know, I'll take that. I'll take that for what it's worth. But with that said, I want to swing back to the Travis Hunter thing real quick.
Right.
From your point earlier, um, when Travis Hunter was playing both sides in college, I wholeheartedly believe that was way easier for him to do, and we all know that. We know this. And when he said that he was going to do both sides of the NFL, we all let out a collective, because we all know what that entails because it's professional football. They don't call it professional football for nothing. In college, he's lining up against maybe an actual really good receiver, maybe 5 times out of the season,
Yeah, like
and
there's
the
a one
rest
in
of
five
them.
chance the guy he's lining up against is actually going to play on Sunday.
Right. Exactly. And everybody else is, they got science class on Monday morning. So, there's a difference, there's an absolute difference. And, I'd hate that he has to figure this out the hard way, but, some people, sometimes that's how some people learn. So, I mean, the good thing is that whatever side he eventually ends up on is because I think I'm almost pretty sure that he's going to end up on one side. The great experiment, whatever this is going to come to an end, and he will end up on one side. Hopefully, it's cornerback because I think he's a way better
I
cornerback than he
agree.
is a wide receiver.
I agree.
So hopefully, when that decision comes down, he stays at the cornerback position and he balls out and has a wonderful 10-year cornerback career. Cool, I'm with that. But eh, it's a fun experiment to do now. I remember when we brought on Denard Robinson as an offensive weapon. We all saw what happened with that. So
Nothing.
right, exactly. At
Nothing.
least we're trying with Travis, but the great experiment has to come to an end at some point. So that's where I stand on that.
So I'm going to throw something we didn't get anywhere near talking about and the lead up to this. Right now, Jags final record end of the season.
You know,
You can do ceiling and floor. You can do like best case scenario, worst case scenario.
no, I'm gonna give it because I'm an eternal optimist. 9-7.
9-8.
Oh, wait, 9-8.
9-8.
Yeah, 9-8.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We got one more game this
You got
year.
one.
What the
Okay,
heck?
so I'm actually gonna go. 'Cause I think I did this. I think I did this on a chat with you like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So wait, we're 4-3 now.
right.
So three. I think we're gonna. I think
But it's a good looking 4-3. You know, we really only, you know,
6.
we've really only crapped the bed once so far this
7.
season.
I'm gonna go 10-7.
10-7?
I'll go 10-7. I think we beat Houston again because they're just falling apart in front of our
Yeah,
eyes. We split Indy. We beat Tennessee.
right.
Um, but there's gonna be one more gotcha game that we don't see coming. It's either gonna be the Raiders in 2 weeks, or it's gonna be like the Arizona Cardinals. Um,
Right.
I think we go toe to toe and lose by 2 points, lose by a field goal to Denver. And then yeah, there's like one more in there that I can't think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think best case scenario we're 10-7. And
Okay. I'm
I don't know if that gives us the division or not, but it definitely puts us in the
right.
playoffs.
I'm waiting for, because we're overdue for it. I'm waiting for the game where it all just clicks and we drop,
We've been saying
you
that
know,
for
40 points on
years.
somebody. Right, right. You know, and I really think this is the coach to do it, you know, but, you know, we're overdue for that game where, you know, where we drop 35 on somebody and they only score 7. You know, we're overdue for that game. So, you know,
So
the
you're
statistics.
talking 35-7.
Right,
Trevor completes 70% of his passes,
right,
has four overall touchdowns.
right,
We get one more on the ground, if not from defense.
right,
Get back up to 7, 8 sacks, maybe two or three more turnovers. Just the
right.
whole field. Our average starting position is the 40 because our special teams is just lighting it up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We're overdue for that. We're overdue for it. And I think it'll come this season. Hopefully earlier, hopefully sooner rather than later, because if it happens sooner, then we finish very strong, you know, and probably with an actual playoff berth and not a, you know, wild card, you know. So
I'm I'm waiting for
I'm all for it.
I'm waiting for Trevor to have a complete season instead of
Yeah.
just the first half is really bad or the second half is really and really inversely really good. I'm waiting for
Right.
him to play 17 games in a row that makes a complete
Right.
season, and if he can turn this season into that, he stays. And if he
Right.
can't, I mean, we. I mean,
The word for that,
here we go. Here we go. You want to hear an insane take?
what's that?
Tr- Um, Trade deadline. We get Gardner
Who?
back in here because Trevor's still
Gardner?
struggling.
Okay,
Gardner,
that's a take.
give me my boy.
That's a take.
Give me my boy back. Bring him
That's a
home.
take.
I'll buy the bus he lives in front of the stadium. I'll pay for it myself. Get him
Man,
back.
that's a take.
Trevor struggles for 2 more weeks after the trade deadline. Gardner starts.
Wow. That's a hot take. It's been a long time since I've actually heard an actual hot take. You want to hear mine?
Yeah,
We trade Travis Etienne for Tyreek Hill. How's
I'd
that
take
for a
that.
hot take?
I would take that right now.
Yeah.
I'd take that right now.
Well, we pull a trade deadline and we take Tyreek Hill. We give up Travis Etienne. That's my actual hot take.
I would rather trade him to the Eagles and get Smith, but because Smith is a beast who can sit there
Yeah,
and read
yeah,
half of a book on the sideline and then go put up numbers when he needs
right.
to. But yeah, like I take that.
Absolutely.
Anything
Yeah,
to
man.
free up Hunter/Brown slash um
Right,
Brian Thomas Jr.
right.
And
Because they
anyone
can watch him.
to take focus off the other three guys that we have lining up back there,
Right.
that'd be it.
Because it's a case of respect. Any defense that we've lined up against, just does not respect our receiving core, and rightfully so. So,
All right,
it
so
is what it is. I mean, we got to
one
adjust accordingly.
yeah, one last thing. Again, our favorite commenter Lewis C904 has brought up. We have not talked about the kicker yet, and I will answer this question the exact same way Liam Cohen answered it, which is someone asked him, "What's going on with the kicker? Are you worried?" And he answered, "No."
No, I will. Lewis, I thought about it. In our pre-show notes, I will say that I intentionally did not mention the kicker at all. It was 100% intentional. So take that for what it's worth.
I didn't get to see the kicks. Liam also booknoted it with you'd rather have his first kick of the game be like a 30 yarder and not a 52 yarder or whatever it was.
Right, right, right,
But
right, right.
absolutely not. If he has another bad outing against the Raiders, yes, we can talk about it then. But I mean, it's still impressive enough that I'm going to bring up the 70 yarder in Florida, humidity. No, it didn't count, but
Absolutely.
he did it.
Absolutely.
So
In that thick Florida
yeah,
air,
yeah,
and
drilled
he's
it.
gonna line up. I'm gonna call it now. He's gonna line up for a 75 yarder in the winter, and he's gonna drill it right down the
In,
center, and that's gonna be the actual
in
record.
Denver,
So
in Denver,
in Denver, he's gonna drill it. So if Liam Cohn actually ever sees this, you heard it here. You heard it here first. So yeah.
all right, man. No game this
All right.
week, so I'll see you next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
man. Talk to you then.
All right.